Okay, let's see. We had some internet problems, so I'll just see if anyone comes back in. Really does depend on right. Can you see and hear me? I can see someone in the room. I'll just see if more people come in and if it works. And we're back. Yeah, we're back. So, guys, can you tell me what was the last thing you saw or heard before we lost the connection? What was someone just write out the last? Tell me the last thing you saw or heard, please. Can anyone just type out? Can anyone just type out what they saw or heard? What was the last thing that you saw or heard? And I'll try and pick up my thoughts from there. Was it this woman that was speaking? Okay, so we'll take the video back a bit. We'll take the video back a bit, and we'll pick it up from when from here. Hopefully, I'll pick up from where we left off. Okay, so no sound. Let's try this again. Okay. Right. No, that's not working. Right, let me just pull this back up. Sorry about the technical problems, guys. We were doing so well. Take me a minute just to regroup. Right. Okay. We're back. Okay, so apologies for the problems. Can't do what about the internet. Sometimes happens. We just have to try again. And I was at 2019 on the video. Thank you. That is useful. Let's have a look. 2019. So we'll play it from there. Okay.
Pressurized Taliban here, and they can play a wonderful role.
Do you see any chance, any sliver of hope there that there is something we can get leverage with there?
I think the problem the Taliban will have got, if as looks pretty likely, they will have taken complete control.
So sorry, I was making a point previously about the drugs trade. is that the Western powers, anyone who is in the West who might be raging against what's happened in Afghanistan, if you've taken opium or you've got involved in any of the derivative drugs that come from poppy seeds, and to be honest, I'm not even sure it's opium, but whatever it is, if you have partaken in that industry, you have helped to create this situation. You have helped to kill British and American soldiers. You know, so take a minute to look at yourselves. If you're a drug user, particularly if you're a drug user who is using drugs that are coming from poppy seeds. You know, drug users have got blood on their hands all over the world. Cocaine users, you know, you've got the deaths of small Colombian children on your hands, and you deserve to face that. Now, obviously, if you're not someone who uses drugs, then we're not talking about you. So don't take it so personally. But if you are someone who's used drugs, you have helped to fund the Taliban. So get your shit together. So let's press on.
Control of Afghanistan is, where do they go for support in the future? Okay, last 24 hours they've taken control of Jalalabad, so that's opened up the way to Pakistan, the Islamic State of Pakistan, an Islamist state quite clearly in Afghanistan. So maybe they've now got a good ally in Pakistan. But is that enough? Because Pakistan is not everyone's favorite country. Then you look the other way, you look to Iran. I don't think there are many common bedfellows between the Iranian Shia regime in Iran and what will likely to be in Kabul.
Sure. The key issue for Afghanistan after centuries, let's face it, of instability is security. There are many Afghans, Hosna Jalal, as you know well, who say, look, we might not like the Taliban, we not like what they do, but they brought security and they cut down the appalling corruption which is corroding this country. There's a degree of truth in that.
With the Taliban,
this is the progressives clutching at straws, like desperately clutching at straws to try and pull some kind of narrative, because they have this obsession about trying to look at the nobility of the Islamist when there's nothing noble about them. And everyone should listen to this woman's reply.
Corruption is exactly the same case like we have with the narcotics issue. Taliban claims that there has been zero narcotics cultivation and transportation and smuggling during the Taliban regime, and now it has rise during the Republic government. But the thing is that the whole state had monopolized that business. Now, no one could figure that out. There was no freedom of speech. There was no media. There was literally nothing to figure that out, what's really happening inside that state. Their corruption business has been the same, like I would say their narcotics business. But at the same time, there's one more thing, that when we are talking about a well-established, bigger state which serves, the public on a larger scale, that is more vulnerable to corruption compared to, I would say, a very small regime. We also need to compare that with the vulnerabilities. I don't ignore that we didn't have corruption. We did have it as an immature state of 20 years old.
Of course.
But at the same time, we did have, I would say, corrupt officials.
Right.
But I can't say that's comparable to Taliban, not at all.
Okay. Hosna Jalal, finally, I want to return to the point you made at the beginning of this discussion. You are totally convinced you cannot separate the Taliban from international terrorist groups, and that therefore what is happening now is taking us straight back to 2001 in terms of world security, right?
At least I've had 2 rounds of Taliban in just my 20s. It's just my 20s, right? So what I would say is that for Afghanistan, we bear most of the costs, and we hold ourselves more responsible for what's happening in Afghanistan. Well, we might have, in the future, we might have another version of Emirates. It might be a little bit different than their previous version, but I would say more brutal than what it was.
Hosna, Richard, thank you.
And it will be more brutal than it was. There's absolutely no doubt about that. They're better organized. They're going to be better funded. They've regrouped. you know, and so it's kind of like this is the situation that we now face. The failure of Western ideology to tackle Islamism is evidenced everywhere in the world, in Mozambique, in Nigeria, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and it's because they don't understand how to win. They don't understand how to win. They will not accept the size of the problem. They won't accept the root and cause of the problem. And that is why they lose. And so for the rest of us, isn't it time that we abandoned our own establishment and its ideology? Isn't it time that we embraced a different way of understanding the world? There's only ever been one force in this world that has put jihad into reverse. There's only ever been one force in this world that has defeated the Islamist, and that is the church. It is a muscular Christianity that we need, because only a muscular Christianity is going to win. So because we had an interruption, I'll take some questions. So does anyone have any questions on the topic? I will ignore questions that are not on the topic. So if you've got questions that are on the topic, please put @Bob, and I will do my best to give my thoughts on your questions. So I'll just wait to see as that filters through. Whilst I'm dealing with a question, save yourselves disappointment. If I'm dealing with someone's question, don't type a question, because it'll just disappear in the chat and I'll miss it. So let me deal with the first question that I get before you type in your questions, and then you've got more chance of me seeing your question. Let's have a look. Is that about the topic? That's not the topic, well, but no, actually, yeah, it is connected. It's, the Christian People's Alliance is a Christian political party in the UK that Christians should be supporting. And there's also Christian pressure groups like Christian Concern for Our Nation that Christians should be supporting. Christians have just got to get political. We've got to have a Christian political vision. You know, we haven't had one for 300 years. It's time we get one back. Time that we had our own vision for the direction of the West. So again, if you want me to deal with your questions, please put @Bob, and I'll do my best to deal with your questions. And while I'm waiting for that, I would just say, I hope other Christians, other nations, you know, other Christians in other nations put up their own put up their own Christian parties. Can you tell us a bit more of everything going on? I've caught bits and pieces on vacation. You'll have to catch up on your own, bro. I'm not doing a new service, sorry. Oh, hold on. There's loads of questions suddenly coming through. Bear with us. Okay. What are your thoughts about our President-in-Chief, Joe Biden? Well, I mean, he's completely flopped this. He's completely failed in this regard. He could have reversed the decision that was made by Obama. He could have reversed it that was made by Trump. He could have reassessed and made his own judgment. But he decided to go along with what the other two presidents had done. And I think that we're all going to rue a horrible lesson because of Biden's decision. To be honest, I don't know enough about the Russian retreat in the 80s to make any comparisons. Good question, Andrew, but I'm not in a place to make the comparisons you asked me to. Okay, so this is an interesting point. This is assuming that a muscular Christianity takes hold of governments. But the reality is the progressives didn't want to convert the Muslims. If, say, let us do a thought experiment. Let's say everything panned out exactly as it had done over the last 25 years. But the muscular Christian governments had been in charge at some point and taken control. Those and we were still in Afghanistan, we would have sought the conversion of the Afghani people. And yes, there would have been many that wouldn't have converted, but there would have been many that would have converted. And as people accepted and were made to accept that people could leave Islam, that would create the space by which a new ideological ground could be set, so that new values could penetrate. And that's one of the key differences, is that the progressives wanted to build up a state without taking on questions of civilization, whereas a muscular church would. The point of a muscular church in terms of how it can reverse radicalization, Islamic radicalization, is that if we are confident in expressing our faith politically, economically, socially, culturally, and spiritually, it simply crowds out the other voice. It suffocates the air upon which radicalism grows, and it isn't frightened to take on the radicals in the same way that progressives are, because progressives don't want to analyze the problem as being one that is caused by religion, whereas a muscular Christianity would obviously accept that there's a religious dimension to the Islamic radicalism that we're seeing, and would be willing to take it on for what it is, rather than, as our current government is constantly trying to reinterpret every event to fit within their own worldview that doesn't have a category for the fact that this is a religiously inspired movement that is authentic to Islamic teaching. It might not be the only way that that Islamic teaching can be expressed, of course, but it is authentic. It is certain. I mean, I think, no, I don't think it would be fair to say it's pure Islam. Every expression of Islam is always a compromise between the circumstances that are on the ground and the mediation of the people that are trying to apply it. But it is certainly a sincere and authentic expression of Islam, but pure is too strong. That's not a question to me, sorry. Let's move down. It's going to jump, and I'm going to, okay, let's have a look at this one. I want you to know that the liberal leaders know what's up. They just don't care. Why should they? I honestly believe that the liberal establishment has an ideological blind spot and cannot and does not see the world as it truly is, because their ideology prevents them from doing so. And it is for that reason that they are unable to deal with the problem for what it is. And this is where Christianity could educate them. This is why we need Christianity in the West. We don't need more liberalism. We don't need more secularism. We need a return to the Christian faith. Inevitable due to the failed policies of this liberal establishment that we will have to go back into Afghanistan in the not too distant future. What do you mean not too distant future? We've already had to send troops back to Afghanistan. But you're absolutely right, Jimbo. We are going to end up having to continue to be involved in Afghanistan, because despite all their promises and reassurances, they are going to give succor to the Islamist networks across the world, through funding, providing space for training, logistical support, and they are going to end up pushing, Islamist violence across the world, just like Iran has pushed it, just like Saudi Arabia has pushed it, just like Sudan pushes it, North Sudan, obviously. It's intrinsic to the Islamic ideology that you push violent Islamic jihad. You can't escape it, because they believe that jihad can be offensive. We've had a big Muslim apologist admit that recently at Speaker's Corner. And so the West daydreams and fantasizes that they're going to moderate, and they're not. And every weakness of the progressives is going to be exploited by the Islamists, as they already do. And the progressives can't see it because they're not actively thinking along those lines. Whereas a muscular Christianity would just not have any truck with tolerating Islamists anywhere. Because why should we? So yeah, I think we're not getting out of Afghanistan anytime soon, and nor can we until we accept that the solution is less Islam in Afghanistan. That's the solution. Let's have a look. Bob, is Taliban and Iran at war? No, not that I'm aware of. But I do think there will be some conflict. And I just want to show you a video of the fact that this Islamist movement is very much on the ground in the UK. Let me just play you something.
American soldiers' faces, if you looked at them, they're running out on in the airport, man, the only airport that
can you hear that?
Flights leaving international flights as an operation. They just, oh man, it's like the Taliban slapped them and then sent them in their airplanes. But inshallah, the country will settle soon and build fast. They'll build fast and they'll establish Sharia law and Allah's laws, and they'll unite with other Muslim countries. So I want to play a video.
So these are people that are living in the UK. Did you guys catch that? I'll just play. I'm going to lose some questions, I'm afraid, but I want to make sure that. Did you catch that? Did you catch it? Yeah, great. You heard that. So these are people that are living in the UK and they're celebrating this, and they're hoping that it will be a sign of things for the future. People need to wake up to the fact that the percentage of Muslims that agree with this Islamist ideology is a high percentage. We're not talking about a small number of people. We're talking about a large number of people, and people need to wake up. How do you think Islamists have sustained jihadi armies in diverse areas: Nigeria, Somalia, Mozambique, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Philippines? How do you think that they can marshal that many fighting forces on so many different fronts if it doesn't have widespread support? Now, widespread doesn't mean majority. Don't confuse those two terms. But we are talking at least upwards of 40 million Islamists. That's a lot of people, and we have to wake up to that. The reality is, Douglas Murray said, the reason why Eastern Europe doesn't have a problem with Islamic radicalism is because they don't have much Islam, and that is right. The solution to this is less Islam. That's the solution. Doesn't mean necessarily less Muslims, but it means less Islam. Well, no, I'll take that back. Let me rephrase this. What it means is a politically impotent Islam. That Islam is reduced to just a cultural expression, which of course the Islamists will never accept. And ultimately, it boils down to the fact there needs to be less Muslims, and that needs to be achieved through conversion to better ideas and better beliefs. Conversion to the Christian faith is the answer to the Islamic radical. And it's not just that we need Muslims to convert to Christianity. What we need is liberal progressives to convert to Christianity. and woke liberal Christians to convert to Christianity. And what we need is a rediscovery of that kind of spirituality that we saw, that kind of spiritual identity that we last saw in the medieval world, not just taken, uprooted and characterized and planted in the 21st century, but filtered through developments and taking the best of it into the present, whilst rejecting its worst expressions. We need to return to the fathers and the way of the ancestors. Let's see, any more questions? Okay. I've heard this report as well. I did want to talk about it, but I need to. I haven't seen the verification. So could you send the link that proves this? What media outlets are talking about this? I know that people are talking about it on WhatsApp. It's going around Christian circles, but what is it rooted in? It's just a WhatsApp message. Like, I need to know the source. I need to know, like, the news agency that's reporting this, the news report that is reporting this, before we talk about it. But there's no doubt that a Taliban Islamist government is going to be bad for Christians in Afghanistan. And that is why we need to demand that Christians from Afghanistan be given primary place and refugee status. And it is your failure, progressives. You were willing to tolerate the bigotry and the hatred of Christians in Afghanistan, and that is why you lost. Because you were never willing to tackle the ideology that beat you. All you did is build roads and schools, but you never tackled the ideas that are now going to tear them all down. And that's why you lose. And that's why you're losing in the West against the Islamists as well, because you're not willing to tackle the ideas. So I would like to encourage you all to go to see your political representative and to demand the following things. 1, no legitimacy to the Taliban, no peace with the Taliban. 2, refugee status to be given to Christians from Afghanistan. 3, tackle Pakistan. There's some more here. And 4, I'm going to mention it because the media never do, help defend Christians in Nigeria. Okay. I've got time, hopefully, maybe for one more question before we go. Okay. How can we get involved and help? I have emailed several times with no response. Well, I have just answered that question. Go and see your political representatives. Talk about this. Talk about the alternative, that we don't just have to keep following the liberal progressives, that there is another way of thinking about the world and about how we do politics. Talk about and be noisy for the persecuted church. For crying out loud, be noisy for the persecuted church. The biggest problem with Christians is whenever we see a problem, all we do is pray. And that is not enough. It has never been enough. It never is enough. You must act. And I hope it becomes a thing amongst Christians that people don't send out a prayer cause unless they also at the same time send out suggestions about what kind of things you can do to make it better. Because frankly, you know, our default setting is problem, pray, and then we don't do anything else because we think we've done something, you know, and that isn't sufficient. It never has been. So go and see your political representatives. Go and make it very clear to them, you know, the demands that I've mentioned, if you agree with them, of course, or maybe your own, whatever they might be, and go and get involved in Christian organizations. Go and make noise on social media. Go and become an activist for the church and undermine the progressive media narrative that is already now trying to construct a way in which we can accept the Taliban as an official government because our leaders are weak. Okay, let's end in a prayer. Let's do a different one. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall be praised. My soul shall be praised in the Lord. Let the gentle hear and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and he delivered me from all my surging. Come to him, and be enlightened, and your face shall never be ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him, and saved him from all his afflictions. The angel of the Lord shall encamp around those who fear him, and he will deliver them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who hopes in him. Fear the Lord, you his saints, for there is no want for those who fear him. Rich men turned poor and went hungry, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Who is the man who desires life, who loves to see good days? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Shun evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their supplications. The Lord's face is against those who do evil, so as to destroy their remembrance from the earth. The righteous cried, and the Lord heard them, and he delivered them from all their afflictions. The Lord is near those who are brokenhearted, and he will save the humble in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but he will deliver them from all of them. The Lord shall guard all their bones, not one of them shall be broken. The death of sinners is evil, and those who hate the righteous shall go wrong. The Lord will redeem the souls of his servants, and all who hope in him shall not go wrong. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.